So let us look at the questions. CSR should not only be about big multinational companies donating money for social causes. It should be more about corporates adopting ethical business practices. So at present, if you look at CSR, it is all about these multinational companies donating 2% of their profits to social causes. The underlying idea behind this is that these corporates are earning money from the people, from the society. So they also have responsibility towards the society. They also have responsibility towards society. But the much bigger question that here we are talking about here is, it is not about how much amount of money they are donating for social causes. It is about how they are earning that money. That is what CSR should be more about. So for this, you will start with Mahatma Gandhi's one of the 7 sins, commerce without morality. Gandhi talked about commerce without morality. So what do most of the corporates do? In the name of maximizing profits, they they adopt illegal, immoral means. After adopting these illegal, immoral means, they donate a portion of their profits to charity. That should not be, and that will not be, and that cannot be what we call social responsibility, CSR. You can give the examples here. This Sachin Computers, Ramalingiraju in India, he had spent lots of money on social responsibility, CSR causes. He had run schools and colleges and medical help, provided medical help to people. But what did he do? He cheated the investors, he cheated the stock markets, he cheated shareholders, he cheated his own employees also. So what is the point of indulging in this social responsibility activities when you are deceiving everyone else? That is what the question. And give the example of this one, BP, British Petroleum, a multinational company. This British Petroleum, it has ruthlessly exploited the natural resources of these South American and African countries. After exploiting those resources, they had donated some amount of money to social responsibility in the form of constructing schools and hospitals. And that is the reason why what we are saying is that CSR should not be about corporates donating money to charity. It should focus more on ethical business practices. That is what you have to write. Take the case of Bill Gates Foundation. Bill Gates Foundation spends huge amount of money on CSR activities. Same is the case with Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg. He had donated huge amount of money. But the question is, how did they earn this money in the first place? By adopting monopolistic practices, illegal business practices. And that is the reason why we say that CSR should not be about corporation donating money to charity. It should be about adopting ethical business practices. Next, if civil servants have empathy, nothing else matters. If they don't have empathy, again nothing else matters. If civil servants have empathy, nothing else matters. So what we are saying here is that the most important quality, the most important value a civil servant must possess for him to be successful is empathy. What is this empathy? Empathy means they must feel the sufferings of the people. They must come out with the solutions to the problems faced by people. While doing so, they should not expect anything in return also. And as we keep on talking about this empathy they can have when they believe in this Hindu philosophy of Advaita, wherein you believe that Advaita philosophy, wherein you believe that the soul is the same, the bodies are different. When you believe that the soul is the same and bodies are different, you feel the sufferings of other people. You feel the emotions of other people, and you will always help other people, because helping other people only means helping yourself. That is what we say empathy, and this empathy is extremely important for civil servants. Why? Because if they have empathy, they will be honest, they will have integrity, they will be selfless, they will be impartial, they will have love and affection, and they will ensure equity. All these values would automatically become part of their personality if they have empathy. All these values would automatically become part of their personality if they have empathy. That is the reason why we said that if civil servants have empathy, nothing else matters. If they have empathy, nothing else matters, because with empathy, all these values would become part of their personality, and they would automatically become successful civil servants also. On the other hand, the reverse is also true. If they don't have empathy, again nothing else matters. Howsoever honest, howsoever integrity, all these things they may be, unless they have empathy, none of these values can be truly displayed in terms of their behavior and actions. You can be extremely intelligent, you can be very honest. If you don't have empathy, then you will never be effective as a civil servant. For example, if you are a civil servant responsible for disaster management, in the name of honesty, in the name of integrity, you will not go beyond rules and regulations. You will not help the people. You think that implementing rules and regulations would only be the ultimate objective of your organization. Obviously, you will not become effective at all. That is the reason why all these values which we are talking about, which we are stressing upon, all these values would become redundant if civil servants don't have empathy. A very, very important statement. Even if this is not asked in the examination, as part of your answers in the ethics paper, you must be quoting these statements. If civil servants have empathy, nothing else matters. If they don't have empathy, again nothing else matters. Next, present degeneration of values can be traced to emergence of materialistic societies and false notions of happiness. So, the basic complaint that we make about present day societies is that the present day societies are materialistic societies, wherein we have seen very fast degeneration of values, denigration of values in our society. What do you mean by that? It means that there are very few number of people who are still honest, selfless, and who have still moral values like reverence, fidelity in relationships, and empathy, and other moral values. That is what we are seeing. What is the reason why people are not good in the present day societies? Why people are not good? Why? Because of the materialistic societies that we have at this point of time. What is a materialistic society? A society wherein people believe that true happiness lies in possession of materialistic comforts. True happiness lies in possession of materialistic comforts. So, what they are doing, in order to have these materialistic comforts, they are willing to sacrifice human relations. They are willing to sacrifice human relations. What they are doing is, they are deceiving others, they are cheating others, they are cheating others, they are exploiting others, they are manipulating others. Manipulation, deception, exploitation, cheating has become the order of the society. And another important trend that can be seen as part of these materialistic societies is that in these materialistic societies, success is given more importance than goodness. In a society gives more importance to success than goodness. What do you mean by that? In a society values, regards, respects only those people who are successful, successful in terms of positions, in terms of money, in terms of materialistic comforts. That is the reason why what we say that nowadays it is easy to become successful and difficult to be good in our societies. That is the reason why nobody wants to be good. Everyone wants to be successful. And the notion of good life also has changed completely. At present, good life means materialistic comforts. Good life means money. Good life means status, position, power, name, fame. And for that, we are willing to sacrifice all our values. That is what Mahatma Gandhi talks about. Knowledge without character. Knowledge without character is extremely dangerous. Knowledge without character and values. And take the example of Chidambaram only. A highly successful lawyer, very successful politician. But what did he do? At least according to CBI, he has manipulated the system. That is what it has said. Now manipulated the system. Thousands of crores of rupees. Conservative estimates Chidambaram's properties are 20,000 crores. According to conservative estimates, his properties are 20,000 crores. How could you earn so much amount of money when in the last 35 years his only profession was politics? People want to be successful. It is said that his son Karthi Chidambaram, he had purchased villas, golf courts, tennis courts, and houses in European countries. Will you go and stay there? No. Then why do you want? That is why the problem here is. The problem here is about our definition of good life. Our definition of good life. That has resulted in degeneration of values. It has resulted in degeneration. Everyone wants to have more money. As we say, money is one thing for which there is no saturation point. It has absolutely no saturation point. And that is the reason why people become corrupt. They become manipulative. They use their intelligence to exploit others, to manipulate others and to deceive others. That is what the question says. Now, the important question is what can be done? What can be done? We must change the value system of the society. People must realize that they can become rich only through hard work, but not through manipulating others. That is what we say ethical infrastructure of the country. In India, ethical infrastructure is very weak. Everyone believes in India that they can become rich, powerful in a short period of time, without hard work. That kind of value system should change, and we require good role models for these things. We need role models who can help us change our value system. That is what you have to write. Next, discuss the reasons for increasing intolerance in our societies. Suggest measures. Why we are witnessing increasing intolerance in our present day societies? Why we are witnessing intolerance? What are the reasons why we are witnessing intolerance? India is a multi-religious, multi-ethnic, multi-caste society. So basic problem here is that India is a developing country wherein the resources are limited. India is a developing country wherein the resources are limited. Obviously, there is a huge amount of demand for these limited resources. There is huge amount of demand for these limited resources. Why? Because those who can control these resources are the ones who become rich in our societies. And then, how can you have control over those resources? It is believed that in India we can have control over resources only when we identify ourselves with a particular sect, sectarian identities. It can be religion, it can be caste, it can be region, it can be language. So what is happening is that, these sectoral identities had become extremely powerful in recent times. They had become extremely powerful. What we call it as identity politics. Identity politics. So once we start identifying ourselves with a particular religion or a caste or language or a region, what do? Automatically we develop intolerance towards other faiths, other cultures, customs and traditions. We develop intolerance. And what we do is that we start having these false notions that other religion, other caste is trying to dominate us. And when we see this diversity in our society, we cannot accept this diversity. We become highly insecure about this kind of diversity, thinking that people from other identities are trying to dominate us. And that is when you have more conservative societies. Last year in your Nationalism paper 1, this question was beautifully asked. Normally globalization should help us in removing these identities. It should help in moving towards what is called a global village, wherein all the people in the world would think that they are part of what is called Homo sapiens. Okay, the same race called Homo sapiens. But on the other hand, what happened is that this globalization has provoked, it has made these identities much more stronger. Why? Because as I said, there is huge amount of demand for resources. Unless you cannot have control over the resources on an individual basis. So for that you need a group of people to come together and protect your interests. And that protection can be either in the form of religion or caste or region or language, anything else. In India we have this kind of identity politics, and that is the reason why we are witnessing what is called increasing intolerance in our societies. That is the reason why if other person eats something different from what we eat, then we try to punish that person. If other person follows a different religion, has a different custom and tradition, we become intolerant. We want homogeneity, whereas societies can survive only when they are diverse. And we want to impose our cultures, traditions and customs on other people. If they don't follow, we become intolerant, which is resulting in violence also. And another problem here is that we don't have any knowledge about other traditions and customs. Complete ignorance about other traditions and customs. Why we don't have any knowledge about other traditions and customs? Because of our education system. Jawaharlal Nehru, for good or bad, he adopted Western education system in India, wherein in the Western education system, it was mostly based on what is called rationality and scientific temper. Consciously, he made sure that the education system would be completely devoid of values. So people simply don't know about other traditions and customs and values. So when they see something different from what they have been practicing, obviously they will get threatened. They will get frightened. It results in intolerance. In India at present, this intolerance is not only because of religion, caste, region or language. It is also because of in recent times aggressive nationalism. This patriotism is manifesting itself as aggressive nationalism. If you don't stand up when this national anthem is played, you will be punished by the people. Everything has become too aggressive. If you have any opinion which is different from the dominant public opinion, you will be treated as a traitor and you will be punished by the society. We have these sedition laws, part of a colonial regime, which are being continued even now also, to kill any kind of dissidents or to silence diversified opinion. And what is the solution? The solution is implementation of rule of law, strict implementation of rule of law. Those who are committing crimes, those who are indulging in violence should be severely punished. For example, in Uttar Pradesh recently, the state government had given clemency to all those people who are accused in Muzaffarnagar riots. like this in almost every state in India. People are no one is punished for their crime. So with more security and conviction, they are able to commit the crimes, knowing fully well that they will never be punished. So you must implement rule of law, and in law, as part of long-term solution, we must make sure that these values are taught as part of our education system. These values would become an integral part of our education system, so that our children are are given knowledge about different aspects of different religions, customs, traditions and values, so that they will develop tolerance also. Yes. Huh? What further, to overcome this identity politics, you must ensure what is called equitable development, inclusive and equitable growth. You must provide opportunities. The problem is that the country is witnessing jobless growth. So, people think that, young people in our country think that they can get a secured future only when they have reservations. That is the reason why every caste in our country wants to be part of OBC, so that they can get reservations. OBCs want to be part of SCs and STs, so that they can get more reservations. And that is where the problem. And that is the reason why a person like Hardik Patel could become extremely popular leader at the age of 21. From the same land that produced Mahatma Gandhi and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. There also Hardik Patel had become very popular. And what is his fame? What is his passport to popularity? Reservations. That is where the problem. So that is why we are talking about intolerance in our societies. Yes. Delhi government. Let us hope that for that let us for the first first thing, Arvind Kejriwal should become good before teaching good to others. Every day he is wasting public money, full page advertisements in the newspapers and every newspaper with Arvind Kejriwal photo. We may not see newspaper every day, but we will see every day Kejriwal photo, full page. And whose money is being spent? Taxpayers' money. Let him become good first, then he can preach these things to others. That is what, teach them, the cultures, traditions and customs. Let the children be taught about Bhagavad Gita, Bible, Quran and other religious texts, so that we develop, tolerance. This intolerance is because of ignorance. As a Hindu, you don't know anything about what are the traditions and customs of Muslims or Christians or Sikhs. So if they do something which is different from you, you become insecure, then you become intolerant. This intolerance results in violence. Teach them. Next, what do each of the following quotations mean to you in the present context? Courage is more important than to be deceived by shallow victory waiting for a delayed defeat. So these kind of statements nowadays in UPSC examination are creating some kind of problems for students because they are not able to understand. So if you look at this, courage is more important than to be deceived by shallow victory waiting for a delayed defeat. Than to be deceived by shallow victory waiting for a delayed defeat. What do you mean by this? Most of the people, this is what we say all the time. We must have the courage to accept the defeat. We must have the courage to accept the defeat. Those who can accept the defeat courageously are the ones who can become successful in the long term. Are the ones who can become successful in the long term. Give the example of Mahatma Gandhi. Give the example of Gandhi's personal life. When he first started practicing as a lawyer in London courts, he went there. The judge had asked him to present his case. Gandhi was so frightened. He was literally shivering. He could not speak a single word. He ran away from the courtroom. He literally ran away from the courtroom. He could not speak a single word because it was almost impossible for him to speak in front of the British English judges and lawyers there. Coming from a small town in Gujarat. And he accepted his defeat. Rather than converting the defeat into a shallow victory, he accepted defeat. And after that, he became the best communicator the world has seen also. He became one of the greatest communicators the world has seen. With the simple language and with effective communication skills, he could motivate lakhs of people to sacrifice everything, including their personal life, for the sake of the country. On the other hand, what do we do? What do we do most of the time? We don't have the courage to accept failure in life. We don't have the courage to accept failure in our life. So what do? We will try to, we will try to convert our defeat into shallow victory, waiting for a delayed defeat. For example, when you are preparing for this examination, these are the examples you can give also. If we don't clear the examination in 1 or 2 attempts, we start blaming everything and everyone, starting with UPSC. The question paper is ridiculous. Second, the competition is unfair. Third, you don't have sufficient time to study. Fourth, the weather in Delhi is very bad. Fifth, Arvind Kejriwal is the Chief Minister of Delhi. You start giving all these excuses. First you must accept the fact that there is some problem with your preparation. And that is the reason why you have not been able to clear. That kind of courage is required for us to be successful in the long term. On the other hand, people, since they don't have the courage, they are always deceived by the shallow victories, saying that, I am very happy because I have cleared prelims. I have cleared prelims. Out of, say 10 lakh people who are taking the examination, only, 15,000 people are clearing prelims. I am one of them. I am more than happy. If you clear the prelims, will you get any gold medal? Will you get Bharat Ratna or Nobel Peace Prize? Nothing. Ultimately, you have to clear mains as well as interview also. But you don't want to accept. You want to be deceived by what is called shallow victory here. Clearing the prelims is nothing but a shallow victory. And waiting for a delayed defeat. That is why, for people to be successful in present day societies, they must have the courage to accept the reality. They must have the courage to, they must have the courage to accept their weaknesses. Then only they can be successful. Yesterday, one of our students, he called me and he said that, he was not able to study well. And he said that, we should not hide anything from teachers and, in front of God. So I am telling you the truth, this is my problem, personal problem, he said. I said that now that you know the problem, it is always very easy for you to find the solutions also. Accept the problem. That is where courage is very, very important. 99% of the time we end up as a failure in our life because we don't want to accept our weaknesses and problems. Once you accept it, only the next step will be success. That is what the question says. You can give your personal life examples. You can give the example of Mahatma Gandhi or any other great leader you also have seen. Next, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. One of the important quotations of Swami Vivekananda. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. This is what we study as part of Hindu philosophy. What is the essence of Hindu philosophy? The essence of Hindu philosophy is all about what is called self-realization. This is what we say. The essence of Hindu philosophy is self-realization. That means self-realization. That means realizing your true self in this world. Who am I? Finding answer to the question, who am I? Finding answer to this question, who am I? So how do I find answer to this question? Hindu philosophy comes out with again the solution, which says that we can have solution through various yogs, Raj Yoga, and then Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. And in this, it is said that Karma Yoga is the easiest way of self-realization. What is Karma Yoga? Performing your actions. Performing your actions without expecting anything in return. Without expecting anything in return. That is what is called Nishkam Karma. Nishkam Karma. Today is birthday of Lord Krishna. So there is no better day to discuss about these things than today, because he is the one who had given us this Bhagavad Gita, which explains us the essence of life. It is said that what is this self-realization that Hindu philosophy talks about? It says that you must realize the fact that you are nothing but the God. That is what Advaita philosophy. You are the God. And how do you realize that you are God? For that, you must immerse yourself in the service of others. God means love, unconditional universal love. God means selflessness. God means empathy. God means sacrifice. If you are able to perform these activities with these parameters, you will realize your true self. That is what Swami Vivekananda also has said. This is very important for present day societies, wherein people cannot even think of helping others without expecting anything in return. Why? Because as we study in capitalism, we proudly say that in capitalism there are no free lunches. That means you don't expect people to get anything in capitalism without working hard. Capitalism always puts a price on everything else. That is why we say that capitalism teaches us the price of goods and services. It never tells us the value of those things. The price is different from the value. Being a capitalist, you will know the price, but you will never know the value. What is the value of love and affection? What is the value of sacrifice? What is the value of selflessness? What is the value of empathy? This is what we have to learn as a human being. Once you learn these things, you will realize your true self. And what is the true self? Nothing but God. This is what Swami Vivekananda has said. He said that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. A very, very important a very important philosophy for the present day societies. For the present day societies. Next, I have everything I thought was important. Again, a very good statement. I have everything I thought was important and nothing that really is. What do you mean by this statement? Yes, in the present day materialistic societies, what is considered important for people? What is considered important for people? Money, status, position, power, name, and fame, and then comforts and luxuries. Comforts and luxuries. This is what we think are important for us. Money, status, position, power, name, fame, comforts and luxuries. Now you can add, thanks to Chidambaram, foreign bank accounts, then golf courts, tennis courts, villas and everything. Right? This is what. And then if you go by Kingfisher, Vijayamalaya, you want to have separate yachts also for yourself, flights, private flights, jets, and then you want to have separate, islands for yourself, where you will be constructing the house for yourself. These are all what we say are important in materialistic societies. That is what it says. I have everything I thought was important. I have all these things, but and nothing that really is. Nothing that really is. That is what we say, as part of philosophy. What do we say? We don't realize the basic essence of life. What is the basic essence of life? When we come onto this earth, we come with nothing. And when we leave this earth, again, we take nothing with us. When we come onto this earth, we come with nothing. When you leave this earth, again, we don't take anything. For example, when Dhirubhai Ambani, when he died, he was the richest person in India. Could he have taken at least 2-3 credit cards with himself so that he could encash them in heaven or hell in ATMs there? No. We don't realize this basic essence of life. We try to earn money, as if that is what they say about again life. The secret, these open secrets about life. We live as if we are going to be here forever. We live as if we are going to be here forever. That is the reason why we buy assets, we buy properties. We have a huge amount of money which we can never spend in our lifetime also. We live as if we are going to be here forever. What happened to Alexander? At the time of his death, he had occupied almost 50% of the earth. When he died, he needed only 6 feet to bury himself. That is what we don't realize. That is what the question says. I have everything I thought was important and nothing that it really is. What is important in our life? What is important? Nothing that really is. What is important? Peace of mind, happiness, love and affection, respect, from others. Peace of mind, happiness, love and affection, respect from others, relationships. You will not have any of these things. Why? Because you are spending all your life only in so-called good things of life. And at the end of the day, when you die, nobody will remember you also. Because your sons, your grandsons, your family members, they are always looking for you to die so that they can get all the property. They want you to die as soon as possible so that they can get all the property. Nobody will have any kind of respect, love for you because you have never loved people unconditionally all through your life. You don't have any what you call basic human values also. You always, as we have said in materialistic societies, we believe that happiness lies only with materialistic comforts but not with human relations. You always let the life, only, to satisfy your essential pleasures. And you have earned so much amount of money but you don't have any peace of mind also. And at the time of your death, that is what Alexander also realized. At the time of his death, one this Buddhist saint, he met Alexander just before he died, and he asked Alexander, what did you achieve in your life? Just before his death, Alexander has said that yes, I have not achieved anything in my life. That is what. Even though he was called a great ruler or a great Alexander the Great, he could not achieve anything in his life because his army were against him. At his native place, people were also against him. He could not earn a single friend in his life. You don't have a single person who is crying unconditionally after your death. What is the point of leading that kind of life? And that is what the question says. I have everything I thought was important and nothing that really is. So what should we do? That is what, we must realize what is important and what is not to have a happy and peaceful life. Yes. That is what, that is what we say. It is never said that you should not have any materialistic comforts. You should know, you must also have the courage to lose them. That is what the previous question also we have said. You can have as many material comforts as possible, but even if they are leaving you, it should not take away your happiness. That is what. You can have as much as materialistic comforts, but the only catch here is that tomorrow if they are not with you, you should not feel disappointed. You should not feel sad. Then you can have as much materialistic comforts as possible. That is what Hindu philosophy says. You should be leading the life. You take the case of this swan in a cesspool. Have you heard about this? Okay. So even if it is there in cesspool means whenever you have rains and all these kind of things, you have a lot of mud and water combined together. Even if when it is there, ducks and swans, when they are there in the water, they are not impacted by them. They are very pure. They are white, in spite of the fact that they are in that muddy waters. And in the same manner, you should always lead the life like that bird. You should not be impacted by the negative, negativity in the rest of the world that you have. You can be living there, but you should not be impacted by it. That is what the Hindu philosophy says. You can have all the comforts, but you should not be influenced by them, impacted by them. You should maintain what is called detachment. That is what it says. Next, come to the other questions. Explain the following terms and their relevance for public services: equity, rationality, and selflessness. Why equity is required? Why equity is required? Because we have heterogeneous societies. There is so much of inequality in our societies. There is so much of diversity, inequality in our societies. There is a lot of difference between the rich and poor, men and women, forward caste and backward caste, and one particular region, developed regions and underdeveloped regions, and then between one religion and other religion. And what is happening in our society is that those who are developed are becoming more richer, and those who are poor are becoming more poorer. That is the reason why, as a civil servant, you must ensure equity in your functioning. That means, as a civil servant, you should always be biased in favor of weaker and poorer sections of society. You should be always biased in favor of weaker and poorer sections of society. This equity is necessary to ensure inclusive growth. One of the important social values that we talk about is equity. Equity is necessary to ensure inclusive growth. You should be biased in favor of women, children, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs, minorities, and other weaker sections of society. Why? Because this is the philosophy of governance. What is the philosophy of governance? The government should be there only for the poorer sections of society. Why? Because rich people can always take care of their interests. They don't require the help of the government. That is the reason why we talk about equity. Next, rationality. Why rationality is important for civil servants? Max Weber talked about this concept of rationality. Why it is important? Why? Because again, of the kind of society that we are living in, these individual values are highly subjective in nature. When we take decisions on the basis of these subjective considerations, on the basis of our personal values, the decisions can become completely irrational. They would become inefficient. That is the reason why Max Weber has said that rationality is one of the most important civil services values. What is this rationality? Weber defined this rationality in a simple manner. taking decisions strictly according to rules and regulations. You should always take the decisions strictly according to rules and regulations. There is no scope, there should not be any scope for personal discretion also. There should not be any scope for personal discretion. That is what Max Weber talks about. And this rationality is very important for a country like India, wherein societies are generally what you call backward societies, where people are still guided by traditions and customs which are highly subjective in nature. For example, you must have seen in the newspapers 2 days back, according to the orders of Supreme Court, there is this temple that was demolished in Delhi. It was rational because it was constructed in a government land illegally. But the government says that they will construct the temple again. Do we require so many temples? Already there are so many temples in our country. The gods have 5-star accommodations and all these temples. Now what we should be doing is that constructing houses for poor people rather than spending taxpayers' money on constructing temples. That is what is called rationality. Next, selflessness. Why this is very important. Why selflessness is a very important value a civil servant must possess. What is this selflessness? Why? Because in the civil servants, they perform so many important functions. Whenever they are performing those functions, they should not expect either reward or award or recognition for what they have done. They should not expect either reward or award or recognition for what they have done. If they expect reward, award or recognition, then they can never be efficient. Why? Because if you are as a civil servant, you are expected to work for those people who are not in a position to repay you in terms of anything else. If you are serving a person living below poverty line, can he repay you? What is the debt he has owed to you? Obviously, he will not. He cannot. So if you start expecting something from other people, then you can never be successful. That is the reason why it is said that civil servants should always be selfless. That is what we studied. How can you become selfless? Again, go back to the Hindu philosophy. When you believe in this Advaita philosophy, when you see other person suffering in front of your eyes, you feel the sufferings of the other person. You will help the other person. When you are helping the other person, you will be completely selfless. For example, you are extremely hungry. When you have very good food in front of you, you will consume the food. Then will you say that I have done a great thing, I should be recognized for my great service to the nation when I had good food? You don't. Will you say that I should be given at least Bharat Ratna for consuming food when I am hungry? You don't. But when you do the same thing for others, you expect something in return. As a civil servant, if you start expecting everything in return for whatever you have done, you can never become successful. You cannot, 99% of the time, you don't get anything in return because honest civil servants are not rewarded in the system. So if you are honest, if you are selfless, the probability of you getting recognition is very, very less. That is the reason why it says that selflessness is one of the important features of the values of civil services. Next, all three of them, each one 50 words. 50, 50, 50, 150 words. I have given only 3. UPSC gives 5 also. 5 values you have to write in 150 words. That means you are writing entire Bhagavad Gita in one line. So it becomes difficult, but that is what you have to do. Next, corruption is more of an environmental problem than administrative one. So what we are saying here is that corruption is more of an environmental problem than administrative one. What do you mean by that? This is what we say. Corruption is systemic and systematic in nature. corruption is related to the systems. It is related to the environment in which this administration operates. In India, we say that corruption is because of the functioning of our political system, economic system, social and cultural systems, and also because of administrative systems. Corruption is not only related to the functioning of bureaucracy, administrative systems. It is related to all other systems. It is related to ecological systems. It is related to the environment. It is related to the most important reason why corruption in India is there because of the political system. Elections. Political parties cannot win elections without money. And who will give them the money? Businessmen. And what kind of money? Black money. Why do businessmen give money to political parties? Crony capitalism. Because when these political parties come to power, these businessmen expect the political parties to frame policies that would help their interests, that would further their interests. And then economic factors. The price of any commodity is determined by demand and supply. In a country like India, the natural resources are extremely limited in supply. And who controlled all these natural resources? The government. Government has complete monopoly. And that is the reason why all these rich businessmen, they pay huge amounts of money to the government to have control over resources, resulting in corruption. Social and cultural factors, as we have discussed, our society recognizes success, not goodness. So you will be recognized by the society only in terms of how successful you have become. Nobody is bothered what kind of means you have used to become successful because of the changing value system of our societies. And administrative issues, we are still continuing with the colonial administrative structures. We are still continuing with the colonial administrative structures which are chiefly responsible for corruption in India. That is the reason why we say that corruption is more of an environmental problem than administrative one. And what is the solution? Simple, multidimensional reforms should be implemented simultaneously to tackle the issue of corruption. That is what we say. Next, basic problem with our education system is that it focuses more on imparting knowledge than on values. That is what we have discussed as part of some of the previous questions also. In 1950s, we talk about Gandhian model of development and Nehruvian model of development. Gandhian model of development, Gandhi always gave importance to values. Especially Gandhi believed that education system should focus on making children better human beings by inculcating human values in them. Whereas the Nehruvian model of development, Nehru was educated in the Western countries, and that was the time when Renaissance was extremely popular all over the Western world. As part of Renaissance, the emphasis was more on what is called scientific temper, rationality. So obviously values were completely ignored, neglected. Values were completely ignored, neglected. So that is what we say. The basic problem with our education system is that, as we keep on saying, it produces engineers, doctors, lawyers, civil servants, but not human beings. It is producing professionals with a huge amount of knowledge and skills. It is producing professionals with huge amount of knowledge and skills. It is not able to produce human beings with in a right kind of value system. That is the reason why the basic problem again we say with our education system is that it tells us how to be successful in life. Our education system tells us how to be successful in life. Take engineering or medical subjects, get into IITs or IIMs and AIMS. become a doctor, engineer or a banker and earn huge amounts of money. That is what our education system teaches us. It tells us how to be successful, but it never teaches us why to be good. These are the sentences you have to write in the ethics paper. It never teaches us why to be good. Our education system never, either consciously or deliberately tells us why we should be good. That is the reason why these morals and values are completely neglected in our education system. They are never neglected. How do you get your jobs? You get your jobs on the basis of skills and knowledge, not on the basis of your morals and values. Take the case of UPSC also. What does UPSC test? It tests your knowledge of constitution, it tests your knowledge of economy, history, geography, international relations. But does it test your values and character? Where is it? Paper 4. Okay. And what does this paper 4 teaches you? It teaches you how to be hypocritical. Right? How to be hypocritical, not why to be good. How to be hypocritical. That is the reason why in the last few years, you take all those people who got maximum marks in ethics paper are turned out to be most corrupt civil servants. So you take that with a pinch of salt. So that is what, anyway paper 4, marks in paper 4 do not really impact your overall score. If you are getting in mathematics 400 marks, in mathematics optional if you are getting 400 out of 500, does it really matter if you are getting 80 marks in ethics or 70 marks or 60 marks in ethics paper? Not at all, right? Because all the 4 GS papers combined together, if you get 400 marks, you will be happy. Right? So it does not really matter if you are getting minus 100 marks in ethics paper also. So don't honestly give credit to UPSC for what they have not done. So coming back here, that is the problem with our education system. And that is the reason why, what is the outcome, what is the consequence? The consequence is that, as we have said, we are producing professionals, with skills and knowledge, but not human beings with values and morals. And what can be done? We have to change the direction, the focus of our education system. We must teach future generations the value of goodness than the significance of success in our life. We must teach them what is real happiness. We must teach them what is the essence of life, rather than making them join this rat race and in the process losing their happiness and essence of life also. That is what we say. Next, rules and regulations are necessary but not sufficient to ensure ethical conduct of civil servants. Discuss other means to ensure honesty and integrity in civil services. So, we are talking about the fact that these rules and regulations are one of the important sources of ethics for civil servants. That is the reason why we have this code of conduct to prevent negative behavior, and we also have code of ethics to promote positive values. Code of conduct to prevent negative behavior and code of ethics to promote positive values. Now what the question says is that, they are necessary but not sufficient to ensure ethical conduct of civil servants. What else is required to ensure ethical conduct of civil servants? What else is required? This is what we say. What we say is that it is almost impossible to ensure probity in governance in the present day societies. Why it is difficult to ensure probity, honesty and integrity in governance? Why? Because of the materialistic societies in which we are living in. And what is the problem with these materialistic societies? The problem with materialistic societies is that everything in the society is valued only in terms of success. As a civil servant also, if you become cabinet secretary, if you become DGP, if you become chief secretary, if you become a home secretary, health secretary, finance secretary, then only you will also have respect among your colleagues. On the other hand, if you are honest, if you if you are selfless, if you have empathy, you will become Ashok Kenka, who will be treated as untouchable in the civil services. That is the reason why, if you look at the civil services in India, these honest civil servants are never, they never reach top level positions. They never reach. On the other hand, people like Ashok Kenka, who are extremely honest, they are punished in terms of transfers and insignificant postings. Ashok Kenka was transferred 50 times in his career of 25 years, and he was never given any significant posting. All the time, animal husbandry department, archaeology department, and if you are a police officer, all the time traffic only. That is where the problem. So that is the reason why what we are saying is that, these rules and regulations cannot automatically make civil servants honest and ethical in their conduct. What else is required? You must change the society. You must inculcate positive values among people from their childhood onwards. You must ensure that the society recognizes those who are honest, efficient and selfless, and who have empathy. As we discussed in our classes also, the ladder in our society, it got reversed with materialistic, with the emergence of materialistic societies. In the pre-industrial societies, who were at the top? In the pre-industrial societies, those who were honest, those who were, who had values, were at the top in the pyramid. They were at the top in the pyramid, even though they did not possess any materialistic comforts. They enjoyed respect, love, and they commanded affection of other sections of society. Why? Because at that point of time, in the pre-industrial revolution, societies were not materialistic. Now, who are at the top? Those who had become successful in a short period of time without, irrespective of the means they have adopted. Under these circumstances, these rules and regulations, cannot ensure ethical conduct of the civil servants. So what we have to do, we have to change our role models. I remember in our class also, I would always ask this question: can you name at least one person in our country, who is honest, who is selfless, who has empathy, and who has become role model for young people without occupying any positions of power? Pardon? Who? I could not get here. Acharya Vinoba Bhave. Role model means everyone should know. How many of you know about him? Everyone knows Mukesh Ambani, role model. Shah Rukh Khan, role model. Acharya Vinoba Bhave. Take a survey among young people in our country. Ask them, who is Acharya Vinoba Bhave? They will ask you, is this part of endangered species? That is what we are saying. Unfortunately, that is what is happening with our societies. Under these societies, is it, can we expect the ethical conduct from our civil servants? Those people who are getting into civil services. Now, for example, take your case only. How many of you want to get into civil services with the objective of serving the society in a selfless manner? Yes. You don't want any of the comforts, luxuries that come with your positions. How many of you don't want to take government accommodation? After we got independence, Mahatma Gandhi had requested Congress party members to be role model for others in the society. He had requested all the ministers, union ministers in the government, to sacrifice this government accommodation, stay in their homes only. For 2-3 days they have done this. After that, they sacrificed Mahatma Gandhi. Very difficult. They sacrificed Mahatma Gandhi. That is the reason why Mahatma Gandhi, after independence, has suggested that now that we got independence, Congress party should be disbanded, dissolved. And Congress party dissolved Mahatma Gandhi. That is what happens. Very, very difficult. That is the reason why, those who are getting into civil services, they are also part of the same society which is highly materialistic in nature, wherein people value only success in terms of money, status, position, name, fame and power. So can you expect those young people who are getting into civil services to be like Mahatma Gandhi and Mother Teresa? And that is the reason why we say that rules and regulations are necessary but not sufficient. So what is required is you must change the society. You must have better role models. You must inculcate values among the people, and you must teach the people the essence of human life. What is true happiness and peace of mind. Then only, that is the reason why we say that it is the conscience within us, which is the most important source of ethics. Because we can deceive anyone else. At the end of the day, when you stand in front of mirror before you sleep in the night, you must be able to answer to yourself whether what you have done is right or wrong. You know for yourself better than anyone else what you have done on that particular day is right or wrong. That is what we say. Next, administrative values have no value if stakeholders do not value those values. Discuss. Administrative values have no value if stakeholders do not value those values. So all the values that we are talking about here, what are the values that we are talking about here? Honesty, integrity, selflessness, empathy, equity, rationality, then transparency, accountability, impartiality, non-partisanship. You can name all those values. These values have no value. These values have no value if stakeholders do not value those values. Who are the stakeholders here in our society? Who are the stakeholders? In a democracy like India, three important stakeholders are there. Political leaders, political executive. Second one is people. And third one is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy. Second one is people, third one is bureaucracy. So what we are saying is that all these values will become useless if these stakeholders do not value these values. That is what the question says. All these stakeholders. In people in India, take the case of people in our country. We are basically not good people. Why? Because what is the tendency of people in our country? They want to be rich, famous, popular in a short period of time without working at all. Our work ethos, work culture is definitely completely different. We want shortcuts to success. Nobody wants to work hard. Nobody wants to be honest. People are honest because they cannot become corrupt. Their honesty is not out of choice, it is out of compulsion. That is the reason why you can see, all of us want only subsidies from the government. Everything free of cost. That is the reason why, India is the only country in the world, people take a lot of pride in calling themselves backward. That is what Supreme Court has said. We are the only country in the world, people take a lot of pride in calling themselves backward. Why? Because the moment you become backward, you will get subsidies, you will get reservations, you will get all kinds of things free of cost. With that kind of society, can you expect the rest of them to be honest, integrity and all these kind of things? And look at the political parties. Every political leader, when he joins politics, what is his objective? To serve the society? You must be kidding. To attain power, to enjoy power, and to continue enjoy power forever. That is the reason why we say that politics and ethics do not go together. And let's take the case of bureaucrats. Young people, when they get into services, they look for their own privileges. They look for their own powers. That is what the Second Administrative Reforms Commission also has said in its report on ethics in governance. Since independence, no meaningful reform is implemented in civil services to make our bureaucracy efficient and accountable. India is the only country in the world wherein civil servants are paid huge amount of salaries without it being linked to their performance. Even Afghanistan also, performance based field. IAS also performance is there. In Iraq also, African countries also, they are more. In Nigeria, their civil services are more efficient compared to India. Why? Because they don't have values. That is what the question talks about. Administrative values have no value if stakeholders do not value those values. Very, very important. These kind of questions you can expect in your ethics paper. Next, our attitude towards women in society at best can be described as hypocritical. We talk about women empowerment in public, but treat them as secondary grade citizens within the household. Explain the reasons for these double standards. What steps should be taken to rectify them? This is what we say. The basic problem with our societies is that we are hypocritical societies. What we say in public is different from what we do in private. That is the reason why it is said that if you want to know the true personality of a person, don't listen to him, don't hear him about what he says in public, see what he does in private. That is what we call it as intellectual dishonesty. How do we define honesty? What is the definition of honesty? Honesty means our thoughts, our words, our actions should always merge. What we say, what we think should be what we say, and what we say should be what we do. What we think should be what we say, and what we say should be what we do. This is the definition of honesty. This is what Mahatma Gandhi called honesty as. Gandhi defined honesty in terms of complete merger of our thoughts, our words, and our actions. On the other hand, what we witness in our societies is intellectual dishonesty. What we witness in our societies is intellectual dishonesty, or what we call it as hypocritical societies. Hypocritical societies, intellectual dishonesty. What we think is different from what we say, and what we say is completely different from what we do. Where can we find this kind of hypocritical attitude the most? We find this hypocritical attitude the most in our treatment of women in our society. India is the only country in the world wherein on the one hand women are worshipped as goddesses. Hindu religion is the only religion wherein women are worshipped as goddesses. In Christianity or Islam, you don't have female goddesses, right? And in Buddhism, Buddha is only the god, not his wife, nor his mother, right? In Jainism, there is no place for women. Forget about gods. In Jainism, there is no place for women. Hinduism is the only religion which treats women as goddesses, and at the same time, this is also the society wherein women are ruthlessly exploited. Why this hypocritical attitude? Why? How do we explain this hypocritical attitude? Yes, how do you explain this hypocritical attitude? Because of, as we have said, intellectual dishonesty. Our societies are intellectually dishonest societies. What we think is different from what we say, and what we say is different from what we do. We say so many things for the sake of others. You take the case of political leaders. Give the example here. All our political leaders, they say that they are all for empowerment of women. But what is the reason why? Even after 70 years, this 33% reservations for women has not been passed in parliament as well as state assemblies. Hypocritical societies. If there are any atrocities committed against women, sexual exploitation and other atrocities, have you ever seen governments reacting immediately? They don't. On the other hand, if some kind of violence takes place against say scheduled caste or scheduled tribes or minorities, immediately the governments react. Why? Because vote banks, vote bank politics. Immediately you can see huge amount of reaction from the governments. If on the other hand atrocities are committed against women, no government will react. Why? Because women are never considered vote banks. They are always treated as secondary grade citizens. Women in our society are not what we call pressure groups. They are not powerful pressure groups like scheduled castes or scheduled tribes or minorities or other sections of society. They are not powerful pressure groups. Why? Because women don't vote in the name of gender, whereas take the case of scheduled castes or scheduled tribes or other backward castes, vote in the name of caste. That is the reason why our political leaders are more interested in protecting their interests rather than working for the welfare of women. That is what you have to write for this question. Our attitude and behavior. Yes.
Can you quote the example of that case
Where that officer? Not required. We have to write from macro perspective, all these things. From macro perspective. And unfortunately, the problem here is that you have to write whatever I am telling you in 150 words. That is what. And it doesn't really look good if I start dictating answers also. Because ethics is one paper where at least you can show some kind of originality. If I start dictating answers, it looks like completely mechanical. Ethics and mechanical things do not go together. So let us come to the case studies part. Yeah. Yeah, what should we take? What can be done? What can be done? First and foremost, this is what we say. You cannot expect other people to come and help you. Women have to come together and help themselves. They must come together and help themselves rather than help, looking for other people to help. At one point of time we had, a country was ruled by all women power only. Sonia Gandhi, the most powerful person in the UPA government. Then the president, Pratap Patil, a woman. Lok Sabha opposition leader, Sushma Swaraj, a woman. Lok Sabha speaker, Meera Kumar, a woman. In spite of the fact that all of them were women, we could not get this women reservation bill passed. So obviously, it is not about having 3-4 leaders. It is about creating awareness among the women about their rights and also asking them to empower themselves. That is what we call self-help groups. When nobody is coming forward to help you, you must help yourself. That is the concept behind self-help groups. Women should come forward and they must help themselves. Otherwise, not every time you can have in societies people like Raja Raman Roy or Ishwar Chandra Sagar coming up. Those were the days over. Now, in the present day materialistic societies, women are only treated as, what you call, what is called commodification of women is taking place. So they must come together. They must create awareness among themselves. They should help themselves at the end of the day. Because religion, caste, society, culture, government, political parties, media, everyone is against them. They should come together. Yes, they should become powerful pressure group. In India, everything is about politics at the end of the day. What is the reason why? So many castes are included in OBC category. Politics. Let the women also come together, 50% of our population, electorate. If they come together and become a powerful pressure group, then immediately 50% reservations will be given to women. And the government will take measures to protect their life, everything else. Obviously, they will have more empathy, towards their own problems. Then they will come out with innovative solutions. Men will only sympathize with the problems of women, not empathize. If you ask Narendra Modi about all these things, what will be his reaction in his personal life itself, what he has done. So let us not go into all those things, right? You take the life of any political leader in India, you have not seen them in their personal life having any respect for women, including Mahatma Gandhi. Next, come to the case studies part. A multi-purpose irrigation project is coming up in a state which is prone to droughts and famines. It has the capacity to irrigate thousands of acres of land and also helps in generating electricity. But it is facing strong protests from farmers and Adivasis who had to forego their land and livelihood. Non-governmental organizations and media also have created major problems by sensationalizing the issue in the national and international media. You have been given the responsibility by the government to convince the stakeholders and complete the project on time by the state government. Discuss the feasible measures to complete the project on time. Yes, sir. So the question says that this irrigation project is coming up in a particular locality, and there is so much of opposition to this project from the people of the locality, especially farmers, Adivasis and people from villages, rural areas. They are strongly protesting it. They are not protesting against the project as such, because their livelihood is taken away by the government. The government has not included the opinion of taken the opinion of these stakeholders while announcing the project. What is the reason why all these projects always face so much of resistance, opposition from the government? Why? Because the most important reason we say is colonial attitudes of our governments. What is this colonial attitudes of our government? Colonial attitudes of our government means, those who are in positions of power, they consider themselves as the masters. They consider themselves as the masters and treat people as their servants. We are talking about both political executive as well as bureaucracy. We are talking about both of them, political executive and bureaucracy. They consider themselves as masters and treat people as servants. And that is the reason why what we see is that they take decisions in a unilateral manner. Decisions are taken in a unilateral manner without involving the stakeholders, without taking the opinion of the stakeholders, without involving stakeholders. Next, once they take the decisions, they impose these decisions on stakeholders. They impose these decisions on stakeholders. After taking the decisions also, they will not involve stakeholders. They impose these decisions on stakeholders. Fourth, to get these decisions implemented, what do they do? To get these decisions implemented, they use force. The might of the government is used. You use the police, you use government machinery to force the people to accept these decisions. Next, the stakeholders are never informed about benefits and costs. Stakeholders are never informed about benefits or costs of these decisions. They are never informed about this benefits and costs. And this ignorance on the part of stakeholders, will make them resist decisions of resist the decisions taken by the government. This ignorance will force them to resist the decisions. They think that the decisions might not be beneficial for them. And this, what happens? Because of the unwillingness on the part of the government to inform the stakeholders about the costs and benefits, it creates what is called information vacuum. People simply don't know what is happening, why it is happening, and what stage is the project. It creates information vacuum. When this information vacuum is exploited by, vested interests. This information is exploited by vested interests. Who are the vested interests we are talking about here? NGOs, civil society organizations, media. NGOs, civil society organizations and media. They exploit this information vacuum, and they turn people against government, saying that the government is taking all these decisions to exploit you, to exploit your resources. And that is the reason why all over the country, wherever these projects are coming up, there is so much of opposition to these projects because of these reasons. So you have been asked by the government to, convince all the stakeholders and, complete the project on time. Once you know the problems, it is not at all difficult for you to come out with the solutions. What do? First, all these are similar case studies are asked in ethics paper almost every year. The same thing. A new project is coming up in an area. Sometime back, 2 years back, the question was asked about a colony Vikas Puri, wherein a multinational company is coming up. There is so much of opposition. Like this, almost every year, these kind of case studies are asked. This year, this can be asked because there is so much of opposition to these irrigation projects in our country at this point of time. So coming back here, now, once you know the problem, you will also know the solutions. What you will do? First, you focus on what is called confidence building measures. Confidence building measures. So what will you do? You focus on these confidence building measures. You will talk to all the stakeholders. All stakeholders there. You will involve media and civil society organizations, everyone else. And you will give assurance to them that the project will be started only with acceptance by all stakeholders. The work on project can be started with acceptance by all stakeholders. This is what we call emotional intelligence, understanding the emotions of other people. Emotional intelligence, empathy, understanding their problems. Then, you will provide all information to the stakeholders about the project. All information to the stakeholders about the project. This transparency can result in a consensus also in decision making process. Transparency. Next, you will also use your social skills to convince NGOs and civil society organizations in the locality about the significance of the project, because you need to take everyone along with you rather than dictatorial decision making process. You will use your social skills. Next, as part of these confidence building measures, you will take into consideration the demands and the opinions of those people, what they are expecting from the government in terms of compensation and everything else. Obviously, when such a huge project is coming up, these farmers and Adivasis, they are expected to give up their land, and it has been their source of livelihood for hundreds of years. Suddenly, they are asked to give up the land for the sake of benefit of somebody else. Obviously, they will not be willing to sacrifice the land, give up the land. So what you have to do is that you must convince the government that the government should be more liberal in terms of providing assistance to these people, because they are giving up their livelihood. The government should also walk that extra mile. Not only they should be given compensation, they must also be shown alternative livelihood. They must be given houses. They must be given ensured better education facilities. Their families members can be given jobs, so that they will become an integral part of development process also. You must also convince the government that these projects are for the people, cannot be against the interest of the people. You cannot expect poor people to sacrifice their livelihood for the sake of rich and powerful sections of society in the name of infrastructure development. And that is what you must also inform the government. The government must also be willing to be more liberal in its approach towards these sections of society. Equity is very, very important. Once all these decisions are implemented, then it should not be difficult for you at all to continue with the project and complete the project on time. You have to find, as I said, give all of them information, so that they will have complete knowledge this information vacuum will not be exploited by vested interests. Take into consideration their demands, their wishes, so that they are willing to give up the land in a voluntary manner also. That is why we talk about this environmental and social impact assessment. Next, come to the second case study. You are the superintendent police of a district. The local MLA who belongs to ruling political party is accused of committing sexual offences against a teenage girl in the district. You have arrested the MLA, but there are pressures on you to go slow with the investigation from state and central leaders. We can see these incidents taking place with a sickening regularity. Discuss the measures to ensure safety and security of women and also to punish criminals committing those crimes. This question is basically asked because of what happened in Uttar Pradesh, Unnao district. You can see nowadays almost all the case studies are mostly from current affairs only. So that is the reason why I gave this case study. Every year, out of the 6 case studies, one case study will invariably about women only. So if you understand the problems of women for a change, you will be empowered. Women may not be empowered, but you will be empowered. Okay. So that is what. So this is a micro case study, wherein you are asked to come out with macro solutions, systematic and systemic solutions. You are asked to come out with. Discuss the measures to ensure safety and security of women, and also punish criminals committing those crimes. So what can be done? What are the measures that you can suggest here? 2 things here. One is ensuring safety and security of women. Second one is punishing those criminals. Mostly in India, what we say is that rule of law is not there either in letter or in spirit also. The moment you are in positions of power, you can easily manipulate the law. You can always easily escape what is called the clutches of law. Normally, the standard statement by our politicians is that the law will take its own course. It never takes its own course. The law will always be law only. And that is where the problem. That is the reason why you can see, people committing those crimes, knowing fully well that they will never be punished. So, this question has 2 important parts. How to ensure the safety and security of women, especially against this, sexual offences that are committed against them. Second one is how to ensure strong punishment for them. So what do you suggest here? What are the things that you will suggest here to ensure safety and security of women? What are the things that you will suggest here? How to ensure safety and security of women? This question, as I keep on saying, repeatedly asked in our ethics paper as part of case studies every year. Almost you are writing the same answer here. You must install CCTV cameras in all public places to ensure their safety and security. Second, you must use this technology to ensure protection of women. Technology. For example, recently in the Delhi state government, in all the public transportation, DTC buses, they have this technology wherein the people can press that button and panic buttons, and then immediately police will come within 2 minutes. Similarly, we also have these mobile applications. Delhi state government has a mobile application. Similarly, other state governments also have come out with mobile applications, so that police can reach on time. Next, we must also have all the women police stations also. Why? Because when these crimes are committed, the men don't have that kind of sensitivity to understand the problems of women. We require all women police stations also. Next, what else can be done to ensure their safety and security? Next, we must improve lighting on the street, on roads. Most of the time, these crimes are committed under the cover of darkness. You must improve lighting. Next, 24-hour patrolling, 24-hour patrolling on national and state highways. National and state highways, 24-hour patrolling. on national and state highways. Next, in all government offices as well as the private offices, Supreme Court judgment in Vishaka case should be implemented. Vishaka guidelines should be implemented to ensure safety and security of women in public places. Next, as part of these long-term measures, women also be given training in self-defense mechanisms to protect themselves, self-defense mechanisms. Next, community policing should also be encouraged. Policing should also be encouraged. Community policing, wherein people come together and in a voluntary manner become part of law enforcement agencies. That is why they say that every citizen is a police without a uniform. Every police is a devil with uniform. No, not like that. So that is what we say community policing. So these are the measures which you can take. Next thing is that you must ensure strict punishment. This punishment should be so severe that it should deter people from committing the crimes. Danda niti, that is what Kautilya always talks about. Strict punishment. Next, come to other part of the question. What should be done to ensure this strict punishment? For this, we must end this criminalization of politics and politicization of crime. Criminalization of politics and politicization of crime. Why? Because all these politicians have criminal records against them, and since the cases are being investigated, they are allowed to contest elections and reach positions of power. Once you reach positions of power, you will use that position to protect yourself from the long arm of the law. You must end criminalization. How to end this criminalization of politics and politicization of crime? That is what we study as part of electoral reforms. Electoral reforms. Electoral reforms. The next thing you have to do is that you must ensure independent functioning of police forces. You must ensure independent functioning of police forces. As the question says, there is a lot of pressure on the police officer to go slow with investigations from central and state leaders. And how to ensure independent functioning of police forces? Implementing again Supreme Court judgment in Prakash Singh versus Union of India. Supreme Court had come out with 7 important recommendations to ensure autonomy and accountability of police personnel. Prakash Singh versus Union of India. In 2006, Supreme Court had come out with this sensational judgment to ensure autonomy, efficiency and accountability of police personnel. What is the reason why? These politicians are able to put huge amount of pressure on the police officers. Why? Because all their career related aspects are in the hands of the political executive. Transfers, promotions, postings and suspensions, everything will be in the hands of political executive. You must depoliticize, that is what we say, depoliticize the functioning of law enforcement agencies. Depoliticize the functioning of law enforcement agencies. Next thing is, we must implement judicial reforms. Judicial reforms. There must be time limit for judiciary to come out with judgments in cases pending before them. In the case of this UP MLA, Supreme Court was extremely critical of the lower level judiciary. Why? Because the case was pending for a long period of time, they did not take any action. You must implement judicial reforms. This is what you will have to write for this question. Again, I am expecting this question in this year ethics case studies. definitely. Next, a manufacturing company provides jobs for many people in a small town where employment is not easy to find. The company has stayed in the town even though it could find cheaper workers elsewhere, because workers were loyal to the company due to the jobs it provides. Over the years, the company has developed a reputation in the town for taking care of the employees and being a responsible corporate citizen. The manufacturing processes used by the company produces a byproduct that for years has flown into the town river. The byproduct has been considered harmless, but some people who live near the river have reported illness. The byproduct does not currently violate any anti-pollution laws. What are the issues of integrity, ethics and law posed in this case study? What the option does the company have, and what should it do and why? Again, these kind of questions are repeatedly asked. Last year itself, the same question was asked. So, coming back here, the question here is that this company, it has been there in that particular locality for a long period of time. Even though it could find cheap labor elsewhere and it could reduce the cost of production, it did not go. Why? Because the workers were loyal to the company. The company was also loyal to the people of that particular locality. It produces a byproduct, which it normally releases into the local river. And when this byproduct was released, it was considered harmless. Even the anti-pollution board also said that it has no polluting components. But some people living nearby the river have reported illness. Under those circumstances, what should the company do? Please remember, this question was asked at least 2-3 times as part of our ethics case studies. One case study was about this a female who was employed by a chemical factory, and last year the case study was about Sterilite company also. So what should the company do? Here, what is the issue here? Legality versus morality. Legality versus morality. Why? Because what the company is doing is legal. Because under the existing anti-pollution legislations, the byproduct is considered safe by the government. So it was not doing anything illegal. Even it was not doing anything immoral also, in the sense that it is releasing that byproduct into the river for a long period of time. Only recently people have reported illness. So here the case study talks about what are the issues of integrity, ethics and law posed in this case study. So what are the issues here? As we have said, it is about legality versus morality. And what should the company do under these circumstances? Normally we talk about only two options. One is ignore the complaints. Ignore the complaints. The company can easily ignore the complaints. What is the merit here? By ignoring the complaints, the company, what it is doing is not either illegal or immoral. When it has ignored those complaints, it was not doing anything illegal or immoral. It was not illegal. Why? Because the byproduct was considered safe by the anti-pollution board. It was not immoral also, because it has been doing this for a long period of time. Nobody reported. If some people have reported now, it might be because of their personal health problems, not maybe because of the byproduct. And what is the demerit? What is the demerit here? What is the demerit? When the company, when the question says that when the company has taken so much care of the people of the locality, even though the labor is very costly, it has not moved away to other places. When the company has so much of responsibility towards the people, ignoring the complaint can be called immoral. When you have done so much for the people, when some people reported that they have become ill because of this byproduct that is being released into the water, it should be, it should be minimum responsibility of the company to take some action. Next, second one is taking action. What is the merit and what is the demerit? The merit here is that when we talk about taking action, the merit here is that it is moral on the part of the company. Why? Because the company has always taken care of the interests of the people of the locality. It has paid them, the workers, very good wages. So it also has some kind of social responsibility towards the people of the locality. When people are, making these complaints, then the company, must take action on those complaints. What is the demerit? The demerit is, it can result in more complaints. It can result in more problems for the organization in the future. The company will have to cope up with unanticipated consequences in the future. More people will complain. Vested interest can make use of the situation. For example, the competitors of this company can use the local NGOs to file false cases against the company also. It can damage the interest of the organization in the long term. It can damage the interest of organization in the long term. So what should the company do then? By looking at both the positives and negatives, what should the company do? As the question clearly says that the company is moral in its character, it is always better for the company to respond than ignore. How to respond? That is what you have to write. How to respond to the complaints. First, the company can request the government to set up a committee of experts. Committee of experts, independent experts, committee of experts to see the impact of this byproduct. The company can request the government to set up a committee of independent experts to see the impact of this byproduct. And the company should also be given ample opportunity. The company should be given opportunity to explain its position to this committee of experts. To explain its position. And third, the meeting of these experts, the meeting of these experts should be held in open, so that all stakeholders, media can also attend those meetings. Transparency is very, very important. Fourth, whatever the decision of this expert committee should be implemented by the company. Whatever the decision of this expert committee should be implemented by the company. Why this is very important? What is the reason why we are suggesting these steps to the company? As we have said, for any organization, the most important asset is goodwill. For any industrial organization, the most important asset is goodwill. If this company takes these steps, it will increase the goodwill of the company in the locality. And this goodwill can be easily transformed into the demand for its products. It can easily transform into demand for its products. And demand for its products will automatically result in more profits. If the company, if the exports group says that, you must recycle the waste, you must recycle the waste, the company has to do it. It might cost the company some amount of money, but that can be compensated with the profits. That is what we say, enlightened self-interest. Self-interest. enlightened self-interest. Very, very important. This is what you have to write for these kind of questions. Ensure transparency, participation, accountability, consensus. All of them combined together, we call it as good governance. If this good governance is implemented in the functioning of corporates, it is called corporate governance. That is what you have to write for this question. Next, you are in charge of implementing a free housing scheme for people living below poverty line. The government has fixed criteria for identifying beneficiaries under the scheme. Mostly poor people living below poverty line who have no pakka houses of their own. Preference can be given to weaker sections of society. But the ruling party, MLA and minister are putting a lot of pressure on you to include their party workers who are not eligible for the scheme. They have offered you bribes and at the same time threatened you with severe consequences if you don't follow their orders. You have approached your superiors, but they have asked you to follow the orders of politicians as they are very powerful. You are in a dilemma regarding what should be done. Discuss the options and come out with your decision. Justify your decision. Also mention long-term solutions. Again, this is what mostly the case studies are about. Almost every case study is about the political pressure you face. Last year also, the case study was there. The minister has demanded you to change the design of the road project, and he said that I will give you, I will purchase one plot of land also. That is what. So almost you can see every year similar case studies. Last year another case study, old couple are there. They fulfilled all the criteria except one criteria, that is they did not belong to backward caste. So what should you do? So coming back here, what is the issue here? What is the issue here? What is the issue here? Politicization of development process. Politicization of development process. Next issue, corruption in implementation of developmental and welfare schemes. Corruption in implementation of developmental and welfare schemes. Third problem, the third issue here is safety and security of honest civil servants. Of honest civil servants. Fourth issue here is protection of honest civil servants from exploitation by their political masters in terms of their career and life also. In terms of their career and life. So whatever the solution you come out with, it must provide answers to all these problems. So what are the options in front of you? What are the options? Again, the two options. One is accept the demand of the minister and MLA. What is accept? When you accept, what is the merit and what is the demerit? You will be able to save yourself and your family, and you can take bribes also. You will also be financially rewarded. What is the demerit? Your actions are illegal as well as unethical, immoral. Your actions are both illegal as well as unethical and immoral. Next option for you is reject the demand. Rest of the options we are not looking at, like approaching superiors, talking to your colleagues, asking for leave from the job. These are the options which we normally don't write, because in all those options it is very obvious. Reject the demand. If you reject the demand, what is the merit? You have shown all the qualities. What are the qualities? Honesty, integrity, courage of conviction, honesty, integrity, courage of conviction, non-partisanship, impartiality, selflessness, you name it, all those values you have displayed. What is the demerit? After displaying all these values, you will not be there. The demerit is that you can be punished severely. There is a threat to your life as well as your family members also. Under those circumstances, what you will do? What you will do? What will you do? What will you do? Again, for all cases you are writing the same thing. What will you do? The first thing is, you will try to approach your superiors. Because here MLA and minister, he will try to approach the chief minister. And the chief minister says that the proposal is very good. I will also give you a list of names. He include those things also. You will try to approach higher officials with your complaints to get justice. If you don't get justice, then what should you do? What will you do? What you should do? You have no option but to become a whistleblower. You have no option but to become a whistleblower. In spite of all these things, you will never succumb to the demands of these people. You are very firm. You are extremely firm in your determination. You are very firm in rejecting their demands. You will not. Why? Because what is the justification? Why? Because this is what we will say all the time. In the battle between good and evil, you should always side yourself with the good. So you must show that courage of conviction. You must show that kind of honesty, impartiality. These things are extremely necessary. You should not bend yourself due to these pressures. You will not bend. You will make the issue public. You will become whistleblower. You approach their authorities, but you will never implement. And then you will, again, this is where again emotional intelligence will come into picture. You will explain to the minister as well as MLAs, the minister as well as MLAs, the consequences of these actions. Consequences of these actions. What are the consequences of these actions? If it is made public, if it is known that this kind of corruption has taken place, tomorrow the minister and MLA can be punished. They can be removed. They will be punished. Accountability mechanism. Not only that, you will also be punished for joining hands with the minister and MLA. You will also be punished for joining hands. And as we study, with Aristotle, people become bad because they don't know the consequences of good. So you will appeal to their conscience. You will appeal to their value system and explain to them the consequences of their decisions, so that they can change their opinion. They can change their opinion. That is what you will do. But as we have said, you will be firm, and you are prepared for consequences. After all these things, the next step is you are prepared for consequences. Consequences can be in terms of your, your transfers, suspensions, and postings to insignificant positions. But you are prepared for these consequences. And by consequences. And by doing so, what happened? You have become a role model for all honest civil servants also in the country. If you are still alive, you have become a role model for all honest civil servants. As we keep on saying, attitudes and behaviors are learnt by others from the actions of their leaders. You also have become a role model. And what is the long-term solution for these kind of problems? What is the long-term solution? This is what we say. Long-term solution is always what we call it as good governance. Long-term solution is always good governance. There must be complete transparency. Participation, consensus, accountability at each and every level in decision making and implementation processes. At each and every level in decision making and implementation processes, so that this systematic corruption can be removed. Systematic corruption can be removed. You can have e-governance to remove any scope for personal discretion. If you look at it, yesterday, this is what our finance minister also said. There is huge amount of corruption in the income tax department. Why? Because there is a lot of scope for personal interaction between the income tax officer and the businessman, which can result in a lot of corruption. They wanted to remove this kind of personal interaction. Everything will be online. You don't know who the other officer also is with whom you are interacting. So there is no scope for any corruption. You cannot make offers of corruption, through emails and everything else. Obviously, they will have to be discussed sitting over a coffee table, right? Coffee with corruption. So that is the reason why we say e-governance. Next, how to reduce this politicization of development process and dominance of political executive. As we have discussed, as we have said repeatedly, this ex post accountability should be replaced with ex ante accountability. If the politicians give you orders which are illegal, unconstitutional, you must have the authority, power to reject those orders without inviting punishment. This is what is called ex ante accountability. What we have is ex post accountability. This ex post accountability is resulting in complete politicization of our civil services, wherein the civil servants are forced to become slaves of their political masters. That is the reason why, in order to ensure independence, integrity, impartiality of the civil servants, this reform should be implemented immediately, so that we can overcome the problem of systematic corruption. That is what you have to write for these questions. Next, an international soft drink company has a signature soft drink that it sells all over the world. In India, the version of the soft drink complies with Indian food and health regulations, but is less healthy than the drink sold in European market, where the law is stricter. The soft drink company is obeying the law in India, but it is selling an inferior, less healthy product in a developing country. What option does the soft drink company have and the government of India have, and what should they do and why? This same question can be asked in different form. Recently, you can see there was this multinational drug company which was selling the stents. In America, Johnson and Johnson. Okay, in America they are forced to pay huge amount of compensation, running into billions of dollars, for selling this inefficient instruments. In India, they could escape from the law because the law in India is different. They said that we are following Indian safety norms, so that is the reason why we don't have to pay compensation to people in India. The same question I have given it in the form of a soft drink company. Otherwise, they can ask you the same, Johnson and Johnson also, medical equipment. So what should be done? What options does the soft drink company has and the government of India have? What should they do and why? This is again a macro case study. What options do they have and what should they do? So what do we say? When we talk about ethics, morals and values, we say that there are some values which are universal in nature. There are some values which are universal in nature. And rest of the values are what we call them as situational or relative. Rest of them are what we call situational or relative in nature. That means they keep on changing for each and every country. What is good in America need not be good in India. It depends on their rules and regulations. In India, which is a developing country, we don't give that much importance to safety and security. Because we want foreign investment, that is the reason why we are little bit lenient when it comes to the safety and security provisions. Take the case of this Bhopal Gas Tragedy, 1984. Union Carbide Company was responsible for this gas tragedy, wherein thousands of people died. And what was the compensation paid by Union Carbide? 25,000 rupees per person who died, 10,000 rupees per person who was injured. Why? Because the disaster management laws, disaster insurance in India was not there at that point of time. We don't have any mechanism, legal mechanism to make them accountable. On the other hand, this BP, British Petroleum, it has polluted the waters of Pacific Ocean in United States of America, Pacific coast. Not even a single person died, but BP, British Petroleum, was forced to pay billions of dollars of compensation, billions of dollars of compensation to the American government because of the strict environmental laws, rules and regulations. Why? Because every country has its own laws, rules and regulations. Under these circumstances, what should the company do? What should India do? And what is the right position? So what is the right position? What should be done? So this is where we talk about what is called global constitutionalism. Global constitutionalism. What is global constitutionalism? For major activities related to human life, all the countries in the world must come out with rules and regulations which are global in nature. It can be related to food, it can be related to safety and security, it can be related to medicines, it can be related to environmental pollution, it can be related to essential aspects of human life. Every country must accept global norms. That is what is called global constitutionalism. Every country must accept related to environment, food, safety and security standards, then medical care and equipment, then afforestation and deforestation, then industrial pollution, in all these activities which impact the life of billions of people around the world, there must be universal standards. That is what we say. There are certain values, customs, laws, traditions that should be universal. Just because you are a person from United States of America, your life cannot be much more valued than a person from India by a particular company. It cannot be, America cannot be positively discriminated by the company, because in America is a developed country where human life is given much more value, dignity and self-esteem. When we take birth, that is what we study in ethics and international relations. Cosmopolitanism. All of us belong to this earth. Cosmos means universe. All of us belong to the same planet called earth. All of us are citizens of this earth. The countries are nothing but artificial geographical borders created by vested interests to divide the people. And these vested interests also, created differences again for their own benefit. And that is, these differences are ruthlessly exploited by multinational companies. They are ruthlessly exploited by multinational companies. So what is the solution that we are suggesting is that United Nations, WTO, and all these multilateral institutions should take proactive measures to ensure global constitutionalism. They must come out with universal standards, and in the same manner they should also come out with proper compensation packages for violation of these safety and security norms also, so that these global standards are followed by every organization. And then coming to this company, this soft drink company, what should the soft drink company do? Forget about this global constitutionalism and universal standards and everything. It is in their own business interest that they adopt the same standards in India also. Why? Why it is in their own business interest that they adopt the same kind of standards in India also? For the simple reason that, as we have mentioned earlier, the most important asset of any organization is goodwill. So if people of India come to know that this company is adopting different standards, they are not treating Indians in the same manner as that of Western countries. They are treating Indians as secondary grade citizens. It can result in strengthening of patriotic tendencies among the people, and they will boycott this soft drink company also. They would lose an extremely lucrative market also. India has the highest number of middle class people who are hell bent on destroying their lives by drinking these soft drinks. Okay. So they should not let people of the country to live happily, healthily. So what they should do, for their own interest, they must make changes. They must implement the same safety standards. And on its part, what should the government of India do? The question also talks about what should the government do also. On its part, the government of India should improve its health standards, safety standards at par with global standards. In the name of attracting investment, the government cannot manipulate, relax these standards. The investment should come to the country according to other conditions, not because of manipulation of rules and regulations. The government should be very much clear that if the multinational companies want to do business in the country, they should do business strictly according to established global norms. India must upgrade its safety standards, so that there is no choice available to the multinational companies in terms of maintaining those standards. Once they don't maintain the standards, they can be easily blacklisted by the governments. That is what. Next, from the point of view of the people, The government must also create awareness among the people about the safety regulations, health standards. Because at the end of the day, any of the policies of the government can be successful only when there is active participation of stakeholders. Active participation of stakeholders. And that is what you have to write. Media, civil society organizations, NGOs should take proactive interest in creating awareness among the people about these safety standards. So, at the end of the day, it is the market that determines everything. Once people start boycotting the products, immediately the company will be forced to change their in a healthy health standards. That is what we say. For example, sometime back in Cadbury chocolates, it was found that some insects were also found in Cadbury chocolates. Cadbury, it had no option but to completely transform its production process to regain the credibility among the people. It had lost huge amount of credibility. Similarly, sometime back, it was said that in Pepsi and Coke, there were pesticides, and the farmers, in order to commit suicide, they started drinking Pepsi and Coke also. Okay. Because they were drinking pesticides. The pesticides were again contaminated. That is the reason why they could not die. The moment they started drinking Pepsi and Coke, they died. Very effective. So that is what you have to write for this question. Yeah. That is the reason why you must create capabilities among the countries to implement these standards also. What is the point of coming out with standards without having the capabilities to implement them? You must have laboratories, physical laboratories and other laboratories to check the standards on a regular basis. Because there is no consensus among the countries. Every country, that is what we study in ethics in international relations. Every country is only talking about self-interest. They are not bothered about the rest of the world. Donald Trump, America first and America lost. LOST, not LAST. No country is worried, concerned about other countries. That is the problem. And how to change the situation? There is no option. How to change the situation? You must make someone like me the head of all these multilateral institutions. That is the only solution. Otherwise, you keep on writing these useless answers in ethics paper. The real solution is somewhat different, which you cannot write in ethics papers. Okay. So, you must make someone like me. Why someone like me only? Remove someone like also. Why should there be again hypocrisy? The head of United Nations come, IMF come, World Bank come, everything else. Okay. Next, in recent times, the country is witnessing severe water crisis. It may be due to excessive use of groundwater resources for agriculture by farmers or our inability to conserve rainwater. You are working as secretary in the newly formed Jal Shakti Ministry. The concerned minister has asked you to come out with feasible steps to overcome water crisis in the immediate present. Suggest those measures. Again, this is a macro case study. You will be getting these kind of. I am definitely expecting a case study related to water crisis this year in our ethics paper. Definitely, it will come. So, what are the feasible steps you will recommend? What are the feasible steps you will recommend to overcome the water crisis in the present? First and foremost, if people don't have water to drink, let them drink Pepsi and Coke. Right? Very good solution. That is what this emperor has said. If they don't have bread to eat, let them eat cakes. Like that, if they don't have water to drink, let them drink Pepsi and Coke. But you Don't write these kind of creative solutions. UPSC don't like this kind of creativity. So you have to come out with very, very conservative solutions. What are the conservative solutions you have to talk about? To overcome the water crisis immediately. What are the conservative solutions you have to? As we have said, more than 85% of our water is consumed by agriculture sector. So the first thing that you have to do is impose charges on use of water and electricity by farmers. Import charges. This should have been done long time back, but it was not done due to political reasons. Because as Mahatma Gandhi says, wealth without work, one of the major sins, the most important precious wealth, that is the water resources of the country, are given to the farmers without any work. When something is given to you free of cost, you will never realize the importance of it. So let the farmers realize the importance of water. Impose water charges. Take that money and give it back to them later as subsidies, no problem. But collect money from them so that they will reduce the consumption of water. Once you start doing this, you can almost see almost 80% reduction in the water usage by farmers. Right now what is happening is that since electricity is free of cost, water is also free of cost, they will have all these bore wells, and these bore wells are not fitted with meters also. They will switch on it and they will continue to pump water without any break for 8 hours, 10 hours, 20 hours also. Most of the plants are over watered. Why? Because water is not taxed in India. So the most important thing is this one. Second, you must ensure that there is shift in cropping pattern in the country. There is shift in cropping pattern in the country from food crops to what is called dry land agriculture. The government must encourage dry land agriculture. Dry land agriculture. And this shift in cropping pattern can take place only when the government implements MSP for all crops. Even the MSP is announced for 23 crops, it is implemented only for 2 crops, rice and wheat. MSP should be implemented for all crops, especially dry land agriculture. Next, the government especially should make it mandatory for all farmers to implement rain harvesting measures in their fields. Rain harvesting measures. Why? Because according to various surveys, India uses only 6 to 8% of its rainfall. Whereas in developed countries, it is almost 250 to 300%. We are not at all using our rainwater. If we have used our rainwater, there is no question of any water crisis in our country. We are using only 6 to 8% of our rainwater. Yes. Pardon? You can write, no problem. These kind of case studies, there is no ethics here. It is only economics and agriculture, geography. You need knowledge of, that is what I keep on saying all the time. In ethics case studies, if you have to get good marks, you must have good knowledge of all the 3 papers of GS. Economics, geography, agriculture, governance, politics. Don't worry. Just only mention the points, nothing else. You don't have to quote the case studies and everything. Next, what else? What are the other feasible measures that you will suggest? What are the other feasible measures? In urban areas, again, water is given to houses with free of, in fact almost free of cost. For example, Delhi, the state government gives water free of cost. These subsidies should end. Subsidies should end. Next, in urban areas also, this rainwater harvesting should be made compulsory. Rainwater harvesting should be made compulsory. For this, building bylaws should be changed. New houses should be given permission only when they have this rainwater harvesting within their premises. Building bylaws should be changed so that we can increase the ground water tables, rainwater harvesting. Next, what else should be done? Water conservation should be included in academic curriculums so that we can bring in behavioral changes in the society. Water conservation should be made an integral part of our academic curriculum so that we can bring in changes. We can bring in behavioral changes. Next, in the medium and long term, we can also think about interlinking of river waters. We can also think about interlinking of river waters. That is what another solution. Next, another solution that can be implemented immediately is the government must encourage non-agricultural activities in rural areas. Non-agricultural activities in rural areas so that farmers are less dependent on water for their survival. Non-agricultural professions in rural areas. Next, government must also dissolve disputes between the state governments regarding sharing of river waters. It must also resolve disputes between the state governments regarding sharing of river waters. Sharing of river waters. Right? So, all these measures can be implemented. Immediately all of them can be implemented. These are the suggestions which you can give to the minister. And as we say, the government had already taken action in this regard. The government changed the name of the ministry from water resources to Jal Shakti, so that the problem is solved. That is what our Prime Minister says. Now that we change the name from water resources to Jal Shakti, the problem is changed. Tomorrow the government says that the problem, the serious economic crisis country is facing because of the name India, it will be changed to Modi. So that is what the government will always come out with innovative solutions. But this is what that should be done. Again, as I am saying, this water crisis can be asked in all your 4 papers of general studies, and it will definitely be asked as part of your essay also this year. You have to write these things. So this is what about this paper. And for those who are in GST test series, we have comprehensive test from 2nd September. For those who are part of our ethics classes, this batch, I think Monday you have the test of section A, right? So that is more than enough. I think we can meet as and when the next test takes place.